Stage 1 in the avoidance cycle is the one that almost destroyed you because it made you question your entire reality. It's that fake freedom, that calm, detached, I'm fine without you energy they give off right after the distance, breakup, or conflict. And if you don't understand what's really happening underneath, you will turn their anesthesia into a verdict on your worth. When an avoidant pulls away, their very first internal reaction is not devastation, it's relief. Not because you were a burden, not because the connection meant nothing, but because their nervous system has been screaming, too close, too deep, too exposed. For a long time, the breakup, the fight, or even you finally walking away becomes a pressure release valve for them. While you're drowning in emotion, they suddenly feel like they can breathe again. They tell themselves, see, I'm okay, I don't need anyone, I'm better like this. And you see that on the surface, the dry tone, the distant messages, maybe no messages at all, the stories, the posts, the normal life. And your heart shatters because it looks like they just walked away from everything that broke you and never looked back. But that apparent calm is not healing, it's shutdown. It's emotional numbing. It's a body and brain conditioned to survive by switching feelings off the second vulnerability gets too high. Their system confuses peace with absence of intensity, so when the relationship intensity drops, they mislabel the numbness, the quiet, the distraction as proof that leaving or letting you go was the right choice. This is where you torture yourself the most. You replay every moment, every argument, every imperfect thing you said, desperately searching for the big reason that made it so easy for them to detach. You compare your raw grief to their composure and conclude, I loved deeper, I cared more. I was the only one who took this seriously. But you're comparing two completely different coping styles. You feel to survive, they don't feel to survive. You process by going into the pain. They process by going around it, under it, right past it, numbing, distracting, avoiding anything that might open the floodgates. Their version of safety is disconnection. So when the tie between you loosens, they get a hit of that familiar self, protective, freedom. It's not joy. It's not actual peace. It's the temporary high of taking the weight of emotional responsibility off their shoulders. And because they've spent years, sometimes a lifetime, telling themselves the story, I'm better off alone, people are too much, relationships are drama, they use that initial relief as evidence. See, I knew it. This was getting intense, now I'm back in control. What they don't notice yet is that this calm sits on top of something unfinished, like a blanket thrown over a mess in the corner of a room, out of sight, but not gone. They lean hard into distraction in this stage, more work, more scrolling, more outings, maybe even someone new or old to flirt with. Not always because they're heartless, but because staying in motion keeps the deeper truth from catching up with them. If they keep saying, I'm fine, moving like they're fine, acting like they're fine, they can delay the moment when their body calls them out. You looking at this from the outside, see only the highlight reel and the silence, and that can poison your self-esteem if you're not careful. But the numb relief stage is never about your lack of value. It's about their lack of capacity to sit with emotional intensity. It's their nervous system grabbing the steering wheel and yanking it back toward their oldest, most familiar identity. I'm independent. I don't need anyone. I can walk away. In reality, if you could freeze that avoidant in this stage and strip away the ego, you'd see a person who was overwhelmed by how much they were starting to feel, who equates needing someone with losing themselves, who doesn't yet have the tools to stay in a connection without feeling like they're being swallowed whole. So they disconnect from you to avoid that feeling, and then mistake the temporary drop in anxiety for proof that they've done the right thing. But anesthesia doesn't mean there's no injury. It just means they can't feel it yet. That's what you need to remember when you catch yourself obsessing over their apparent freedom. It's not that they walked away whistling from a love that meant nothing. It's that they hit their emotional threshold long before you did. And instead of leaning in, they hit eject. Their calm is wired, not wise. It's a program running from childhood, not a verdict on your worth. And as long as you keep seeing their numbness as proof that you were disposable, you keep stabbing yourself with a story that was never true. Yes, in stage 1, they will look fine, they might even feel lighter. But it's not because you didn't matter. It's because their entire survival system is built on cutting off feeling the second love asks them to truly show up. Stage 2 is the one that would blow your mind if you could see it, because it's the part you never witness, the part that makes you wonder, did they ever even think about me after they left? While you are in the thick of your grief early on, they are in that numb, fake freedom. But the human heart is not designed to outrun truth forever. And this is where the haunting begins. It doesn't start with a big realization or a breakdown. It starts with tiny, quiet interruptions in their day that carry your fingerprint. A song comes on in a cafe, the one you used to hum without even realizing it, and for a split second their chest tightens. They smell a perfume that smells like you. Someone laughs with the same rhythm as you. A line from a movie you once watched together drops into their awareness. That's how it starts, not with a thunderstorm, but with small, sharp raindrops of memory. At first they swat these moments away. They roll their eyes at themselves. You're being dramatic, it's over, move on. Their ego is still fully on duty, defending the story that leaving was the right choice, or that losing you wasn't that deep. So they change the song, distract themselves, scroll harder, talk louder, make another plan, open another app. They are not ready to feel, so they try to outrun the reminder. But the thing about a real bond is that it lives in places they didn't control while they had you. It lives in their body's rhythms, in the way they relax when they hear your kind of humor, in the way their shoulders drop when something reminds them of the safety they felt with you, even if they never admitted it when you were there. The haunting isn't just about memories of you. It's about the contrast between what they told themselves and what their body knows. They told themselves, "I'm fine, I don't need them. It was too much. This is better." But a random Tuesday afternoon hits and they're suddenly staring out of a window, thinking about the time you sat there eating something silly and laughing at nothing. They can't even explain why that scene shows up. It's not the big fights or the dramatic endings that haunt them first. It's the tiny, ordinary moments that felt like home. The way you said their name, the way you made coffee, the way you looked at them when you knew something was wrong before they said a word. These pieces of you start slipping through the cracks of their numbness like light under a closed door. This is also the stage where they start to notice your absence in subtle ways they don't tell anyone about. They open their phone to share a thought, and their thumb automatically hovers over your chat, then freezes. They remember that you're not their person anymore and quickly lock the screen or send it to someone else who doesn't really get it the way you did. They scroll through their contacts and see your name and feel a quick sting they swallow down with a sigh. They drive past somewhere you went together and suddenly become quieter, more distracted. To the outside world, they're just zoning out. Inside, a scene with you is playing in full color. Their ego, of course, refuses to admit what's happening. So it creates cover stories. You're just nostalgic. You're just lonely. You miss having someone, not them. It tries to downgrade you from a specific person to a generic comfort. But that doesn't quite land, because every time the haunting shows up, it's not just anyone's face in their mind, it's yours. The way you listened, the way you fought for them, the way you apologized when you were wrong, the way you showed them a version of connection that wasn't all chaos and criticism. They don't want to call it missing you yet, so they call it stress, boredom, fatigue, anything but what it really is, the beginning of feeling again. Then the more they try to ignore it, the more creative the reminders become. A friend mentions your name, a memory randomly pops up in their phone, a photo appears in their gallery they forgot to delete. Even their body betrays them. They hear your favorite song and feel their stomach drop before they even recognize the melody. They think of texting you, then toss their phone away like it burned their hand. They dream about you one night and wake up irritated, not at you, but at the fact that their subconscious had the audacity to bring you back while they slept. That irritation is proof of attachment they hoped they had shut off. This haunting stage is not yet regret in full form, but it is the erosion of certainty. Where there was once a hard, clean story, this is over, I'm better without them, there is now static. What ifs, how are they? Did I overreact? Did I misunderstand? Did I throw away someone who actually saw me? They don't have the courage to answer those questions yet, so they keep moving. But the questions don't leave. They linger in the background like a low hum. You are no longer in their life, but you are not gone from their inner world. And that split between the life they're performing and the attachment they're suppressing is exactly what sets the stage for everything that comes next. Stage 3 is where the avoidance mask starts to crack from the inside, not with a dramatic confession, but with something far more subtle and powerful, quiet comparison. At this point, they've already gone through that fake freedom and the first haunting reminders of you. They've told themselves the same ego story over and over. I'm fine, it was too much, I'm better without them. But life doesn't stop just because they're pretending not to feel, so they go back into their usual rhythm. Work, friends. Maybe dating, maybe casual talking stages with new people. On the outside it looks like they've moved on, but on the inside every new distraction becomes a mirror, and what it reflects back to them is the depth they secretly only ever had with you. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small, almost annoying realizations. They're out with someone new and the conversation is fine. It's light, easy, surface level. And there's this moment where they laugh, look around, and feel an emptiness right under the smile, because without wanting to, they're comparing it to the way they used to talk with you, the way you understood their weird references, the way you caught the double meaning behind their words, the way silence with you didn't feel heavy or awkward. It just felt like being allowed to exist. The new person might be attractive, charming, sweet, but something doesn't land the same, and they can't quite explain why, so they brush it off as chemistry or vibes, anything but the truth that you carved a depth in them they can't unknow now. The quiet comparison shows up in conversations too. Maybe they share a small piece of themselves with someone and it falls flat. The other person doesn't get it, changes the topic, or gives a generic response, and their body feels it, that tiny disappointment. That sense of, you don't really see me, and their mind flashes back without permission to the times you heard them, really heard them, the way you could listen to their darkness without flinching, how you remembered their fears, how you noticed the things they didn't say. They remember how safe it felt, even if at the time that safety scared them. Now they're sitting across from someone who only knows the surface version of them, and that contrast starts to ache like a bruise they keep accidentally bumping. They might even find themselves getting irritated at people more quickly, not because those people are terrible, but because their nervous system has tasted something deeper and is quietly grieving its loss. You see, for an avoidant, the defense has always been to say, relationships are too much, people are too demanding, I'm better alone. But in this stage that script collides with reality, because they realize it wasn't relationships in general that felt different. It was this relationship, it was you. They didn't just lose a role in their life. They lost a certain quality of presence, a softness, a fierceness, a specific way of being understood that they now can't find in these shallow spaces, and that's when the comparison gets sharper. They compare how you handled their moods versus how others handle them. With you they could go quiet and you gently check in. With others, the quiet just turns into distance and eventually disinterest. With you they could have a bad day and not be abandoned. With others, their emotional walls just push people away permanently, and bit by bit the narrative, they were too much, starts to sound less convincing. It starts to sound more like, I pushed away someone who actually tried. But their ego hasn't fully surrendered yet, so instead of admitting the full weight of that, they keep the comparison secret. They might catch themselves thinking, they would have understood this, or they would have made this moment funnier, lighter, deeper, and then quickly shut it down. But shutting it down doesn't erase it. It just stuffs it into a growing pile labeled, things I pretend not to know. Even basic daily routines betray them. They go to message someone and instinctively want to tell you first. Because you are still the person their inner world is formatted around. They hear a joke and think, you would love this. They get good news and for a split second want your reaction more than anyone else's. And then they remember they're the one who let that go, that you're not on standby anymore, that they can't just slide into your life like they still have the same access. And that realization cuts deeper each time it lands. The more they encounter almost connections, almost chemistry, almost understanding, the more they feel the uniqueness of what they had with you. The quiet comparison is brutal because it doesn't shout, it whispers, it doesn't rush. It erodes, it slowly strips away the protective story they hid behind, and they begin to see that the depth they told themselves they didn't want is the very thing they can't stop missing now that it's gone. They won't say this out loud yet. Not to you, maybe not even to themselves, but inside, something has shifted. Missing you is no longer a possibility they can argue with. It's a reality they keep bumping into every time life feels shallow without the way you once touched their soul. Stage 4 is the one that hits them long after it already hit you, the delayed grief crash, and it almost always arrives at the most inconvenient time for them. Right when they've convinced themselves they're over it. Right when the world thinks they've moved on. Right when you've started to put your heart back together. In the beginning they escaped feeling by numbing. Then they were haunted by random reminders. Then they quietly compared everyone and everything to what they had with you. And now all those tiny cracks finally give way and everything they've been holding back floods in at once. This is not the melodramatic crying on the floor in public moment you see in movies. It's quieter and more disorienting than that. It's them lying awake at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling. suddenly hit with a wave of missing you so strong it almost takes their breath. It's them scrolling their phone for the 100th time, hovering over your name, feeling their chest tighten and their throat burn, and then tossing the phone aside because the idea of reaching out terrifies them as much as the idea of never hearing from you again. This is the stage where the story they told themselves, "I'm fine without them. It wasn't that deep. I had to walk away," collapses under the weight of reality. You are not there anymore, not as a guarantee, not as a soft landing, not as their emotional emergency contact, and their ego can't protect them from that fact forever. The delayed grief shows up in flashes at first. They hear your favorite song, and instead of a quick sting, they feel something inside them break open. Memories come in full scenes now, not just snippets, the way you used to sit. The way you smiled at them when they were being difficult, the way you said their name when you were tired, but still trying to understand them. As these memories pile up, the distance between you and them stops feeling like space and starts feeling like loss. They realize they can't just call you and pick up where they left off, because they remember how they left things, the ignored messages, the last cold answer. The moment you stopped chasing, the look in your eyes the last time you tried to reach them, and they shut down, and instead of shrugging it off, they feel it now deeply. It lands as, "I pushed away someone who actually tried to love me." This is also the stage where regret starts rewriting their internal dialogue. Before, every time your name came up in their mind, they'd throw a justification on top. "We fought too much, they were too emotional, I wasn't ready, it was for the best." Now those lines don't soothe them anymore. Now they hear, "I didn't show up, I didn't communicate, I let my fear drive. I watched them walk away and did nothing." And those realizations are brutal. Avoidants are used to being the ones who feel in control, who convince themselves they could go back if they wanted. And this is the first time they have to face the possibility that the door might not be open anymore, that the version of you who would have taken them back, with no questions asked, might be gone for good. And that thought hits like grief, because that version of you was their safety net, even when they pretended they didn't need it. Their days start to feel off in a way they can't fix with distraction. Food tastes a little duller. Laughter doesn't land as hard, sleep is lighter, because their mind doesn't shut up once the world goes quiet. At night they run through timelines in their head. What if I had replied differently? What if I hadn't pulled away after that night? What if I had just said, "I'm scared"? Instead of shutting down, they imagine alternate futures with you that they didn't have the courage to build when they had the chance, and every "what if" adds another weight on their chest. This is when even their body starts to register the lost tight chest, heavy limbs, that strange ache behind the ribs that doesn't go away, the kind that tells them this isn't just nostalgia, this is mourning. But here's what makes this stage so invisible they rarely show it. You won't see long posts about heartbreak or photos of tear-stained faces. Most avoidants are too practiced at holding it in, too proud to expose the depth of their regret, so the world still sees them functioning, maybe even smiling, while they carry around this heavy, private storm, and you from your side have no idea this is happening, because that regret spiral plays out in the dark, in their car when a song comes on, in the shower when their mind wanders, in the quiet moments between one distraction and the next. They feel the full cost of their fear without anyone there to witness it, and whether they ever admit it or not. This is the stage where they finally understand what they actually lost, not just a person, but the version of themselves they had the chance to become with you. Stage 5 is the one you've secretly fantasized about and deeply feared at the same time. The disguised comeback, because by the time they get here, they're not just randomly thinking about you anymore. They are actively circling you, but they cannot afford, in their mind, to expose how much they care, so they come back in the smallest, safest-looking package they can find, a "Hey stranger," a meme, a song link, a reply to your story with something light like, "This is so you." On the surface it looks casual, disposable, harmless, but underneath it is loaded with one question their ego is dying to have answered without having to ask it directly. Do I still have access to your heart? Understand this clearly. Avoidants rarely walk in the door saying, "I've been a mess without you, I regret everything." That level of emotional nakedness feels like standing in the middle of a crowded room without clothes. Their entire defense system is built on never needing anyone, never showing too much, never risking that much rejection in one move. So instead they send out these tiny emotional probes, soft little signals that allow them to measure your temperature while pretending it's nothing. If you ignore them, they can hide behind, "I was just being friendly, it's not that deep." If you respond warmly, they think, "Okay, That door isn't fully closed. If you respond coldly, they feel the sting but still have deniability. Everything about this stage is built around one goal: protect their pride while checking if the bridge is still standing. What you need to see is what happened just before they hit send, because that casual-looking message usually comes after weeks or months of inner back and forth. They've hovered over your profile more times than they'll admit, typed and deleted longer messages, argued with themselves in the shower, rehearsed what they'd say if they ever saw you again. Their pride says, "Don't you dare, you chose this, you're independent, you don't go back." Their heart whispers, "But I miss them." No one else feels like them. They watch your stories from a distance, noticing if you look sad, happy, different. They notice when someone new appears. They analyze your captions, your energy, trying to decode whether you're truly moving on or just pretending. And when the delayed grief and regret become heavier than their fear of reaching out, they don't suddenly become secure. They reach for the smallest, safest door crack. That's the meme, that "this reminded me of you." The random check-in, it's them saying without saying, "I've been thinking about you enough that even this silly thing brought you to mind." From their perspective, this is a risk. Even if it looks tiny to you, it's a risk because you could ignore them, leave them on read, reply with a flat "thanks." That makes it clear the dynamic has shifted, so they send it and detach from the outcome as much as they know how. But trust me, their body is watching, that little leap their heart does when the typing bubble appears, the rush they feel when your name lights up their screen again. Even if your response is simple, they're reading between every line. Are you angry? Are you distant? Are you polite? Are you relieved? Are you matching their lightness or are you holding back? They are measuring how much damage they did and how much hope is left. And in that measuring, you finally have more power than you realize. Because this is the first time in the entire cycle that they are stepping toward you while knowing they might not be welcomed the way they once were. What you do here is not about punishing or rewarding them. It's about honoring who you became while they were gone. You don't owe them emotional CPR just because they finally realized what they walked away from. You also don't have to slam the door just to prove a point. You are allowed to respond in a way that reflects your growth, grounded, clear, calm. You can answer without chasing. You can be kind without collapsing your boundaries. You can engage without immediately handing them back the same level of access they had before. Remember, for them, this casual message is a test, but for you, it can be a filter. You get to watch what they do next. Do they follow up with real conversation, accountability, a willingness to talk about what happened, or do they drift back into old patterns of breadcrumbing and half-presence once they feel the door is open? The disguised comeback is not the proof of change, it is only proof of awareness. Awareness that losing you hurt more than they admitted. Awareness that no one has replaced the space you held. Awareness that the bridge they once took for granted might now be in ruins. The real question is, are they prepared to help rebuild it? Or do they just want to stand on the ashes and feel your warmth again? The hidden twist of power in this whole story is that by the time they finally circle back, you are no longer standing in the same place where they left you, and that changes everything about what their return actually means. At the beginning, you begged the universe for this moment. You prayed for their name to pop up on your screen. You imagined all the ways you'd respond, what you'd wear if you bumped into them, how you'd hold it together so they'd finally realize what they lost. Back then, your whole emotional world was parked outside their door. Your self-worth was hanging on one notification. Your sleep was tied to whether they'd read your message. Your appetite was tied to whether they'd watched your story. But then time passed, slowly and brutally. The silence stretched, the reality sank in, and you were forced to do something you never thought you'd have to do. Build a life that didn't revolve around them. At first you did it out of survival, not strength. You got up because you were tired of crying. You went to work because you had to. You laughed at something small and felt guilty for it. You unfollowed or muted them maybe, or you didn't. But either way, you started putting your attention back into yourself inch by inch. You cried in the shower and then still showed up for your day. You talked to friends and finally told the truth instead of protecting their image. You journaled. You watched videos like this. You started seeing patterns instead of fairy tales. You started recognizing that what you called love was also a cycle of anxiety, breadcrumbs, and self-abandonment. And somewhere in all of that pain, a quiet shift happened inside you. You stopped waiting for them to come back and started wondering if you would even want them in the same way if they did. While they were cycling through numb relief, haunting memories, comparisons, delayed grief, you were doing something they weren't prepared for. You were healing, Your nervous system was slowly unhooking from the roller coaster. The obsession began to feel heavy instead of romantic. The fantasy began to feel small compared to the life you knew you were capable of building. You started to reclaim tiny pieces of yourself they never even fully met, your sense of humor without walking on eggshells, your hobbies without checking your phone, your peace without waiting for the next high followed by the next crash. Your identity stopped being the person they left and started becoming the person who survived that and is learning to choose better. So when stage 5 hits for them and they finally send that hey, or that meme or that, this reminded me of you. They are expecting to find the old version of you on the other side. The one who would drop everything, who would reply instantly, who would feel her heart explode just seeing their name. But instead they're met with someone different, someone warmer with themselves, clearer in their responses, slower to hand out access, someone who isn't trying to prove anything anymore. And in that moment the entire equation changes. Because yes, they have gone through their internal stages, but you have gone through yours too. And now the question is no longer, will they return? The question is, are they offering anything that matches the person I am now? They don't know the nights you held yourself together without them. They don't know the conversations where you finally told the truth about the hurt. They don't know the moment you looked in the mirror and thought, I am worth more than confusion. They don't know the boundaries you've rehearsed in your head, the standards you've rewritten, the promises you've made to yourself in the dark. They only know the memory of a version of you who once tolerated being last on their priority list, and that version is gone. That's the twist. The thing you thought would give them all the power, coming back, is actually the moment that reveals yours, because you get to decide what their return means now. Maybe it's an opportunity for a real conversation, for them to show growth, ownership, consistency. Maybe it's a chance to see that they're still the same and you're no longer willing to shrink for that. Maybe it's the closure you never thought you'd get. Maybe it's simply a reminder of how far you've come. You don't have to slam the door to prove you're strong, and you don't have to fling it wide open to prove you're forgiving. You can open it just enough to see clearly, listen fully, and then choose from self-respect instead of scarcity. You can say less and watch more. You can let their patterns tell you whether their comeback is a genuine beginning or just another loop of the same cycle, because the real power was never in getting them to return. It was in becoming someone who will never again abandon themselves just to keep someone else comfortable.